Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of We Got Next. I'm Ricky Hampton with the big fella, former Milwaukee Bucks center, and legend Paul Mokeski. Hope everybody had a great weekend out there. How you doing tonight, Big Mo?
Great, man. I like our new stuff going on.
Oh, man.
Love being with our with our new teammates, and we're gonna move forward, baby.
Yes, sir. Thanks to the guys at Sports Fluent, Tony and the rest of the crew over there. We are so excited to be here. And Mo, each week, our show is getting introduced to new audiences beyond our old regulars who we love and adore. And just the more the merrier, man.
That's right. Spread the word, baby.
Hey, man, great weekend for me. My son's team got in the playoffs with a triple overtime victory. Hey, it's been a tough year, but they're in the dance. I mean, that's the first thing you got to do is get in the playoffs.
You
So
can't
they've done
dance.
that.
You can't dance if you don't get there.
That's, absolutely, man. Hey, Mo, your thoughts on one of the things we're going to get into several topics tonight, but believe it or not, Mo, we are headed down the home stretch of the NBA season, and now we can really get a good look at who's serious about who are serious challengers for the NBA title, and who are some pretenders. And again, I want to welcome all our viewers out there who have tuned in tonight to We Got Next here on Sports Fluence. Of course, we welcome your questions and comments. But Mo, this is hey man, we're heading down the home stretch.
Yeah, 25 games left, all-star games behind us. This is where teams, jockeying for position, try and make a run, get momentum going into the playoffs. And, as coaches, players, you want to keep them focused and just playing it game by game and, do the little things and win quarter and quarter. But as, that's what you want your players to focus on. But as coaches and a coaching staff, we're looking into the future. As an advanced scout for the Dallas Mavericks for 5 years, this was the time that I started to look at who we're going to play in the first round, getting my scouting reports together, go and see those teams more. This is when you start focusing in on matchups, and we know how important that is to playoff series as matchups. And sometimes the third spot isn't better than the fourth spot, or usually the second. If you're not the first spot, then the second spot is best because you don't have to face the number one team till
Right.
the finals in the East or the West. But sometimes you're looking at matchups, and and now with the play-in tournament, it kind of puts a little wrench in who you can kind of target to play. But the main thing is getting your team playing up to its potential, and then, as we know, the biggest ability in the NBA is availability. So you have to get your players healthy and ready to go. And, hopefully it won't cost you, because if you're limited minutes or whatever, it won't cost you games at the end. But the key is to get there and be healthy.
Hey Mo, we used to hear about before we hit the stretch run back in the day about the dog days. Do they still exist with the modern the amenities the players enjoy now, being able to travel by private jet and not have to make those 5 a.m. flights?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's better by far. I mean, when I played, we flew commercial. We went through the airport regular. We waited at the gates. We waited for our bags. We did all that, which added to, the stress. If you play back to back, you have to get out on the first available flight, which is usually about 6:30 a.m. So you got to wake up at 4:30. You get to the airport. Then you get to the place that you're playing, and you try to get a nap before you play. But nowadays, most teams after games, you fly right out after the game. Usually after a game, it's wheels up at 11:30. You're in the air, and depending on how far you go, sometimes you get into a place at 12 or 1. Sometimes you don't get in till 3, 3:30 in the morning, but then you get to your hotel at 4, you get to sleep for 8 straight hours, and that's a big thing. And you got masseuses and catered. You don't have to go through, airports. You're in your private jet, and you go through your own little area, and then you get on the plane, and now you can stretch out. Shoot, the planes have seats that stretch all the way out. You can sleep and pretty much lay flat and watch movies, listen to music, whatever. So it is way, way, way better now. But at the same time, it is still an 8 month season.
It's
It's
still a
still
grind.
80. So it's still a grind. You still got to travel. You got to go on road trips. They are a little bit easier, but at this point, usually the rookies and maybe second year guys hit the wall before the All-Star break because you played 50 games and you still have a college season left to play. So mentally that's kind of draining on you when you think of, you're thinking, you've been playing, 25, 30 games your whole career in college, and now, you play 50 games, and you've already played 50 games twice your season. You got another season to go. But the more you get used to it, the more you can adjust to it. It's more more mental than physical, really.
Hey Mo, I want to get to this stretch run, but man, we got some great questions just to start the evening off. Some interesting questions folks have out there for you. So I want to jump to those, and then we'll get to the hey, and to keep the questions coming because
For sure.
we love that all night.
We want to talk about what you want to talk about.
Absolutely. Okay, what's happening, brother? Been waiting to ask this question. Who was the better defender, Alvin Robinson? Well, I know who Mo is going to say, Sidney Moncrief, although Alvin is.
Well, not necessarily. You think you know me, Ricky, but you might not know me as well as you think because, Sidney Moncrief, teammate, great guy, Hall of Famer. But on pure defense, it's a great question, by the way, because Sidney Moncrief was a very, very, very good defender. But on defense alone, I think Alvin was a little better defender, and he was longer, probably a little more athletic. Sidney was really athletic in his young career. I mean, you see him on the Sports Illustrated cover where he's cocked back, But he played a lot of minutes early in his career. I mean, he was leading the Bucks in points, rebounds, and steals. Early on in his career, so his knees got a little bad on him. And Alvin was just a ferocious defender. And I would give, despite what Ricky's saying, that I would say, which I would give Alvin just a little bit of advantage maybe on the defensive end. But Sidney was a better offensive player, an all-around player.
And speaking of Alvin Robinson, his daughter is one of the top women's players, high school in the state of Texas. So he's passed some of those genes on to her. And, we've had Sidney on the show, friend of the show, great teammate of Mo's. Mo, Sidney was, what was he, 6'3", 6'4"? What made him so special? What made him a Hall of Fame player?
Well, he's about 6'4", but he did. Mostly guys in the NBA can do one or two really good things, and then everything else is, okay. Sidney did everything like at a high level. He'd get to the basket, he could finish, he made his free throws, he could shoot the ball when he was left open, he rebounded, he could pass, he defended, and basketball IQ off the charts. I got to play with for Don Nelson, one of the most innovative out of the box thinkers ever in the game. And, Sidney just picked it up and could read his mind kind of, and they kind of had a little, shoot arounds, he would ask Sidney, what do you think we should do here and that? So Sidney's basketball IQ is so high that, put him ahead above a lot of players.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, let's go. We got another great. Thanks, okay, for that question. Steve has a interesting observation. One of the surprise teams in the league this year. One NBA surprise team to me is OKC, and they still got 1 million draft picks coming.
Yeah, I mean, they're young, but they're getting older. They've been young for a long time there, Steve. And, Shea Alexander, one of the best point guards in the league, and he's young and plays kind of like Sidney Moncrief, just does a little bit of everything. And then Chet Holmgren is his rookie year, but it's really a second year around the NBA. And, he's playing at a high level. And they just got a lot of talent in a lot of positions. Their size, I mean, their strength kind of is a question mark still, but they're playing at a high level, and they do have a million draft picks. I mean, you know how those drive me crazy, Ricky. I mean,
I know. I know.
second round draft picks, those guys usually never make the team, or they're in Europe for a couple of years, but they've done really good with them. And they are assets for an NBA team. That's an asset. That's like money that other teams want. And the more first rounders you have, Boston's in the same situation. The more first rounders you have assets that you can get players you want, future assets. You can help your salary cap that way. So you got a lot of different ways you can go when you have those assets and draft picks. And you have so many young players that are in high demand for other teams.
Hey, Paul, one of the things I've learned from you is point differential. So I want to go over a couple of metrics here with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Oklahoma City. They're both 40-17 right now, atop the West. They're in a dead tie. But starting with Minnesota, their points per game, 113. They give up 106. Their point differential is 7. Oklahoma City, they score 121. They give up 113. Their point differential is 8. Which team would you rather be?
Well, I love offense. It's more exciting. I was watching, I think, the Golden State Warriors game last night, and against Denver, a really good game, high quality, and the Warriors, blew it again at the end, and Denver went on like a 14-0 run, and everybody thinks, when a team goes on a 14-0 run against you, you know, everybody, the fans think, well, you got to stop them. You got to stop. No, 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 no. Like when I was in Dallas, we didn't have to stop them. We had to keep scoring. Just keep scoring, and you'll have that point differential. So, OKC with that point differential and the strength they have on offense, but then on the other end, you have, offense wins games and defense wins championships, and you always want a team that can, when they need stops the most, they can get one. Maybe Oklahoma City is a little more exciting. Maybe Minnesota is a little more hard to watch a little bit sometimes, but man, they play good defense. So in other words, I'm not answering your question. So
hey, but Mo, but Oklahoma City is not going to average 121 a game in the playoffs, are they?
Yeah, but the point differential is why I think it's so important. I mean, Del Harris, a Hall of Fame basketball coach in the NBA,
and friend of the show,
and friend of the show, and a mentor to myself. He drafted me in Houston, but we've had many talks over the years, and he brought up a situation when he was coaching the Lakers way back in the day. And they came to him and said, Coach, we need to shore up our defense. We need to play better defense and have teams score less against us. You know how he did that? He slowed down his offense. So if you slow down your offense and you give the defense less chances to score, less possessions, then it's all perception, right? It all looks different. But so will they score 121 points in the playoffs? Probably sometimes, but not on a consistent basis. But if you don't score 121 and you have that 9-point differential, then those other teams aren't going to score. What are they at? 116 or whatever you said they were?
113.
Yeah, 113. Well, if you're not scoring 121 and you're only scoring 115, but those guys only score 108, you're still winning the same amount of games.
Okay.
Less possessions.
Well, that's why I come to you, brother. You the expert. 12 years in the NBA, 25 years coaching all over the world. That's why I come to you. Here's
I mean,
another great, another
like
great.
Ricky, there's different ways to, analytics is analytics and it's important, but it's just one tool that you use as a coach in a system and a organization. And there's ways to do stuff and impact different parts of the game, not necessarily by changing that specific thing. I have bad knees and I've had bad feet, but sometimes when your right knee is bad, you favor it so your left knee hurts more. That's what happens. So you can adjust it different ways.
So Paul, of the metrics that we see, the stats, it what you key on in more than anything else, really, over the course of the season is the point differential.
I think point differential is huge, obviously. I think now they have shooting efficiency. That means good shots versus bad shots. I like that. Turnovers to assist yourself and opponents. If you turn the ball over less, then your opponent has less possessions. And if assist to turnover ratio is huge. Offensive rebounding. If you let a team offensive rebound against you, you're not a good defensive rebounding team. They get more possessions. Really, if you look at any of the stats you're talking about, even field goal percentage or 3-point field goal percentage, you put that with, okay, we're shooting 40% from the three. That's pretty good. But our opponent 3-point shooting percentage is 41%. That's not good. So it's opponent's field goal percentage versus yours. So all of it together. But in the bottom line, Ricky, there are a lot more blowouts in the NBA than there ever has been. I mean, in the 80s, back in the day, 100 years ago, I can't remember any team, if you lost by 20 points or 18 points, it was a disaster.
That's a big
Now
deal.
teams are losing by 25, 30. That never
40,
happened back.
yeah.
Yeah, that never happened. So point differential is probably a little less important. But in the long run, if you score a lot more points than the other team does, you're going to win more games usually.
Hey, before I get to Chris' question, I want to push this just a little bit further because this is an interesting team, and I'm looking at Sacramento sitting at 33 and 23, 10 games over 500, Paul, and their point differential is 0.8. So they could very easily be 23 and 33.
Yes. Or let's take the positive of that. They probably win a lot of close games. They win them. So, that's another stat that's out there that people don't, winning close games is important, especially in the playoffs, right? The game's a lot closer. So if you can win close games as opposed to lose close games, then that's a huge advantage. And that also means they've been in a lot of close games.
Okay. That's why I asked. Okay.
We're getting pretty deep there. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting because you don't see anybody in there looking like that with a winning record.
Not usually. Not usually. And that, what else that means? They're probably in a lot of close games. So maybe that's not so good.
And they got a guy, the point guard. His name actually escapes me now. That can finish games. The kid from Kentucky. It'll come to me. Everybody learned about last year. Chris has a question. Can Bronny James get to Anthony Edwards, SGA, Donovan Mitchell level? Or is he more of a role guy?
Well, that's it's so early, and as people were talking about that today. And first of all, Bronny James is not draftable NBA player in my opinion right now. He's averaging 5 points a game. Come on, man. But when you talk about guys that have seen him play and scouts, they love his athleticism. They love his basketball IQ. The one thing that really they love, his defensive ability of mirroring players and staying with players and keeping them in front. So that'll get you a long way. But you got to remember, he had a major heart issue 6 months ago or 5, whatever it was. So just like any major injury, knee surgery, separate shoulders, whatever. It takes you time not only to recover and get back, but also to feel okay. Okay, I feel like I'm normal again and I can play. Sometimes you come back from knee surgery, and the doctors say you're fine, your knee is strong. We tested it, it's great, but just, it doesn't feel strong. It doesn't feel right yet. And it takes time. Well, he had a major heart issue. So, it's going to take time for him to recover. And he lost a lot of personal development time because it happened in July. So, it's hard to say at what level he can be at. He's not at, I mean, if they have him on a draft, if you had him on a draft board, I don't know how you can do that averaging 5 points and 3 rebounds a game. That makes no sense to me. But, draft is about potential, so, but, give him another year, give him a summer of training and, we'll see where he's at. But at this point, he can't, if you're looking at him right now, you can't project him at that kind of level of, Mitchell or any of those guys yet. But you never know, because he was at a very high level a year ago. So only time will tell on that.
Yeah, and I love what you just said, man. Hey, guy's just getting his feet wet in college. Let's see what he can do.
And there's a lot of pressure. I mean, there's been a lot of players I played with that have, sons that have played in the, Mike Dunleavy with Mike Dunleavy Jr. and, TC Cummings and a lot of guys that their sons have played, and there's a lot of pressure on them. You even think of Klay Thompson. His dad played in the NBA, and so that and LeBron is like up here in the stratosphere.
Right.
So and you know what, and I'm a dad, and I don't blame him, but it kind of like, I'm kind of like thinking, hey, LeBron, let's not put that out in the atmosphere that, hey, I want to play with my son in the NBA someday. Why don't you, you can think that and tell people that, but let's not put it out there, because guess what? There's no pressure on you. You're one of the greatest of all time, but the pressure goes back on your son. So,
and he's always going to be compared to. I mean, I credit the kid for taking this game up. The only other kid that I can really think about and compare him with is Tiger Woods' son, Charlie Woods. I mean, he's trying to play golf. I mean, and he's a good player,
a really good player. I mean,
and he had a terrible week last week. But you play golf, you're going to have bad weeks. But that, man, the pressure you must be under.
Yeah, I mean,
because Mo, those guys, they don't need the money to play. So their driving force is, this is a game they just want to play.
Who's that?
A kid like Charlie Woods in golf or Brian James.
Yeah, I don't, who knows? Maybe Tiger doesn't give him much money. So maybe he does need the money. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, like LeBron James, maybe don't give him any money. Get it on your own. But
well, that's what Shaq said. Hey, this is my money.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm gonna help you. I'm put a down payment on a house for you, and get you a car. But I ain't gonna support you for the rest of your life. but the fact is, though, if you have a James on your basketball jersey or Woods, on your golf bag, that's that's saying something. How about Ken Griffey Jr. with that kind of thing too, and. But I don't know if I think it's got to be a fact, right? I don't think there's ever been a father-son combination in the NBA ever. I don't think.
At the same time?
Yeah, at the same time.
No, I can't imagine that. No. I can't imagine that. But hey, keep the questions and comments coming. We got a couple of more we will get to, but we want to get back to this the stretch drive, Mo. Who's looking good to you?
Well, Boston is Boston, and they've been Boston all year, right?
They've been Boston all
year. They're 7.5 games ahead of Cleveland. I mean, and that they're just well rounded. I mean, it just broke my heart, man, when they picked up a Holiday my Buck, guy, but that and Porzingis just solidified that whole team, of what they have, and you know, because Porzingis adding that type of big player. I mean, people thought, well, he's been hurt and all that, yeah, but the year before he averaged 18 and 12. 18 and 12. And I think he's around there now. He's at 20 and 7 now. But so what that does, you got to think what it does. Now, when you add a Porzingis, who was Boston starting big last year before Porzingis? It was Horford.
Horford.
Right? It was Horford. And now he's the backup big, and he was a decent starter, right? Now he's the backup, so, and then Derek White's been playing good. The Bucks, my Bucks, the last few games they killed Philly the other night, and they beat Minnesota in a really good game. So maybe they're starting to get it together. The Cavs, who have one of the best starting fives in the league. When you look at starting fives around the league, there's so many good ones, but you got Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, Allen, and then Strus or LeVert. That's a great starting five. The Knicks made a couple moves and got Bogdanovic and Alex Burke, so they're coming on. Philly, unfortunately, Embiid's out. Indiana has dropped to 6th, I think. So, they're struggling. So in the East, you're looking at Boston. Bucks maybe coming on. Cavs, can they hold on? Knicks, can they make a run? And that's what you're looking at in the East.
Okay, I think Cleveland has, Cleveland, they really kind of folded against the Knicks in the playoffs last year. So that makes me a little skeptical. I think they'll be more because they weren't even competitive in that first round matchup against the Knicks last year. I think they should be motivated to do better. But I still say the biggest threat to Boston is Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, but New York's right there too, I think. But let's look at, we talked about on the beginning of the show, we talked about positioning in the playoffs, right? So if you're looking at Knicks are number 4 and Philly is number 5. So if the Knicks, and I can play a Philly team without Embiid or just Embiid come back, I'm feeling pretty good. However, if Indiana passes Philly and I got to play Indiana, I'm not so happy. But, I think the Bucks, the Knicks, and are the biggest threat in the East to Boston.
Yeah. And Steve's right. The Bucks have been playing better on the defensive end the last couple of games. I think they've won 2 straight, and that's what they have to do, Mo.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't get much worse, Steve. They were playing such bad defense, but you're right. They are starting to play better defense. Doc Rivers knows what he's doing. He struggled a little bit, but in their look at their lineup. When I watched them play Minnesota the other night, who was in at the end of the game? It was Crowder, Jay Crowder, who's a good defender, and then Patrick Beverly, who is a tough-nosed defender. That was a good pickup for them. And they were playing defense. And then Lopez is starting to come along. So, they are playing better defense for sure, which will help them. And I think they're going to get better and make a little run here because they're going to have to try and move up and get ahead of the Cavs. They're only a game behind them right now because they want to get it to that second spot because nobody wants to play the Celtics before the East Finals.
Right. And speaking of Philly, Mo, that's just a half game ahead of the Pacers.
Yeah, and they're only 2 games ahead of Miami. And we all know, Miami's surprising, man. They sneak up on guys. I think one of their players got hurt the other day, hurt his knee maybe, but and Philly,
they had the big brawl the other night.
You can't call that a brawl, man. You saw a real brawl in Detroit. That's a real brawl. This is like kids on a playground pushing match.
Well, we all know what era Mo played in. That was
that was like patty cake. What was that?
That's funny, Mo. That reminds me of last year that the kid from Seton Hall, the little point guard that was making all these miraculous shots in the tournament when Seton Hall. I don't think it was Seton Hall. I forgot the team he was. Yeah, I think it was Seton Hall. And everybody, look at this point guard just dominate the game. And they flashed to a picture of Isaiah Thomas sitting there like, he's looking, I did this every night. I mean, what are you talking about?
Exactly. It's all relative, right?
Yeah. Hey, Mo, speaking of, we're gonna get to the West also and get to some more of these questions and comments. Hey, I had the chance to go see Michigan and Purdue yesterday down over in Ann Arbor at Chrysler, and I read today Zach Edey will be leaving. He has another year of eligibility, but he is going to be leaving, and he'll enter the NBA draft. And Mo, I was stunned at how well that big fella moves and how quick he can get to the ball. But a buddy of mine, our friend of the show, Ralph Riddle, mentioned to me today, he was at the game. He said, and he didn't, Edey had 35 points, 19 rebounds. He didn't take a single shot outside of 3 feet.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, about his mobility, he's lost about 15 pounds from last year. So he went into the draft to see where he looked at, and no one was going to draft him, so we went back to school. And to his credit now, and his coach's credit, and whoever's talking to him, they asked the NBA people, why isn't he? Why he was MVP of the college season, and he averaged 28 and 14 or whatever. Why? Part of it was his mobility and being able to guard pick and roll and getting down the floor quicker and that. So he addressed that. He lost weight. He's now quicker to the ball. I think his draft stock has gone up, probably end of the first round, maybe. Someone will take, a look at him. He is unusual for today's game, but still he's effective. But the problem is, the problem is with Dickerson, the Big 7-1 guy from Kansas is the same way, right? Except he steps out and shoots a three every once in a while. Right. But over the last couple months, he's 2 for 20. So really, should you be stepping out and shooting?
Right.
But it looks a little more natural. But here's the problem with Edey. See, and Iowa, Purdue does a hell of a job. I watch them play. They play old school. They swing it. They get angles for him in the post. They know how to feed the post. Then they cut off of him, and he's a good passer. Yes. But he gets the ball. They pass it to him in the post. In the NBA, ain't nobody going to pass it to him in the post but 3 or 4 times a game. So what are you going to do with him? So, they've done some good stuff. Lose some weight, get quicker, work on your footwork. Not on offense, great footwork. On defense, guard and pick and roll, stay in front of your guy, really good. Using your length, good. Watch footage on Brook Lopez, how he plays. Former Defensive Player of the Year a couple of years ago. He's not the quickest guy. He's big. But at the same time, you got to make the next step then. You got to be able to make at least an 18-footer consistently.
And Mo, he's strong as an ox, too.
I
didn't know he lost weight. He is strong, man.
Yeah, but he's strong in college.
You're right. Yeah.
How big was the Michigan player that was playing against him last night?
6'10". He couldn't
6'9", 6'10", 220.
He fouled him out in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, so you're not going to do that to Embiid, the Joker, Brook Lopez, any of them. Come on, man. Come on.
That is.
Yeah. So if what I'm saying is, if I was talking to him I say, okay, this is great, but here's what we got to work at on our own time. Pick and pop, being able to knock down a jump shot, and also being able to pick a half roll, catch it in the paint, and then kick it out, because that's another skill you have to have in the NBA. But I was surprised he wasn't drafted last year. I talked to some scouts that came through here, and I talked to him about it. I'm like, listen, he's not the quote unquote NBA big anymore that like to shoot threes and all that stuff, but you have to have bigs to win. He can rebound. He can pass. He's got great hands. Got touch underneath the basket, left and right hooks. Yeah. Needs to get a jump shot, a little fadeaway 1-footer, probably in the post at the next level. But why would you take a chance at the end of the first or in the second round on a guy that could be in between Brooke Lopez and Yao Ming? He could be in there. Both great. He could be a guy kind of like both. Why wouldn't you? But that's a lot of people don't think that. But I think. But also coming out this year, if I'm talking to him again as an advisor, you got to come out because what you can't. You're going to be your MVP of the league last year of the college. You probably might. You're right in the run. It's good for the Wooden Award or whatever.
He might win it again this year.
What else can you do?
Right.
Unless you're going to average 40 points and 20 rebounds, what else can you do? So you either go, you see if you can fit with the NBA, which I think you can, even if you have to go to the G League a little bit. I was at a G League game Sunday. There's some players in there, man. I'm telling you. And then you figure out your way and figure out sooner than later. If this NBA thing is not for me, then I'm going to go overseas and make $500, $1 million a year for the next 15 years. I'm be happy with my life.
Hey, Paul. He's also a very good free throw shooter. Has good form. Does that translate into being able to hit a jump shot?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
You see guys like shoot all cockeyed and stuff. And there was a big guy shooting the other day. I can't remember it. He was shooting like he had the one-handed push shot and stuff. You're like, well, you can work with that, but he already has good form. He has to get. There's different footwork in the post and three-quarter post than there is picking and popping and hitting a jump shot. But it's just different footwork.
And we're going to move on. One more thing. There was no reason for him to step outside yesterday. They could not guard him.
So. Yeah, no. But for your own personal reason,
right?
When you go to the next level, you better be able to, or you're not. He could go to China and make a couple million. They're going to feed him the post, feed him to it in the post. Some other Euro teams that still use posts and stuff. But you gotta be able to do the other stuff if you want to play in the NBA. And I'm not saying I think he can. I think he can.
I do too, Mo. I do too. I really. He is fundamentally sound. He's quicker than you think. But we'll see. Here's a great question from Woodage84. And Mo, you dealt with all these guys. Paul, who was harder to play against between Bird, Magic, or Jordan?
Yes. I mean, come on, man. I mean, three totally different players, right? And people ask me that all the time because this was my era. I came in with Bird and Magic. That was my draft. And then Jordan came in as with the Bulls when I was with the Bucks in the mid 80s. So I played against him a lot. And this is what I say, you can't pick one over the other. If I had to start a team with either one right now, from the get-go, I might be Magic because Magic was a 6'9" point guard, that could do it all. He was a leader. He could get other players, the ball, really good at that. Bird did stuff, hell, he scored 35 points left-handed in the NBA game. I mean, we saw Anthony Edwards in the All-Star game try to shoot one last, forget about it. But, great passer, he's a great competitor. MJ was probably the most athletic and probably the most skilled of all three of those. But to pick one of those guys, let me put it this way: they're all hard to play against.
but Mo, everybody talks about the Jordan mistake. You guys had no problem with Michael.
Early.
Right.
Early. Yeah, when I was at the Bucks, if you look at the best teams in the East, Boston, Philly, Atlanta with Dominique Wilkins, we had in the 80s, the Bucks had the best regular season record. We just couldn't get over the hump. We couldn't beat the Celtic team when we beat Philly. We couldn't beat the Philly team when we beat Celtics. We could get over the hump, but we had one of the best teams. And when MJ first came in with the Bulls, they weren't very good. He was good, but they weren't. We loved playing them in the playoffs. It was usually 4-1 or whatever, till they made the move and they got Scottie Pippen and they got Horace Grant and those guys, and then it was a different story. But early off, the Bulls, they weren't a very good team. They were a playoff team, but not very good.
Man, I think you would, and I'm going to follow up. He has a follow up to that, which I'm going to get to. But you talk about these guys, Bird, Magic, and Jordan, and you mentioned another tremendous player, and he kind of gets lost in that conversation because the Atlanta Hawks never uh, won a championship, although they were serious challengers and had some really good teams. But Dominique Wilkins, speak about Dominique.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a reason they call him a human highlight film, right? Like we talked the other show about, in the games back then, even it's today, right? Everybody, people that say you're going to get dunked on, right? If you're any kind of defender, but the people I feared most to getting dunked on was Charles Barkley and Dominique Wilkins. Dominique Wilkins freaking embarrass you with tip dunks and flying out of nowhere and power dunks, and but he also had a nice little mid-range game. He had great footwork going to the basket, spin moves. I mean, one of the best games ever, and I think it was a playoff game, was when Larry Bird and Dominique were battling. I think they both had like 45 or 48 or whatever. But yeah, he is overlooked. But you young people out there, go to YouTube and look up these guys. And while you're at it, look up Terry Cummings, look up Marcus Johnson. These guys are unbelievable players, and they get overlooked because they're playing with the Bird, Magic, and then MJ era.
Yeah. And Atlanta really has some good teams. I'm sure you had your battles
Yeah.
with Big Tree Rollins down there.
Well, they got Moses Malone for a while. They had Doc Rivers as a point. But yeah, they were a really good team.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's one to follow Woodage 44. Who was harder to practice against? Moses Malone. Now I do know the answer to this one, Mo.
That's the easiest question ever.
Yeah, explain it, Mo.
It's Moses Malone, no question, because Bob Lanier, when I got to the Bucks, his knees were so bad he hardly ever practiced anyway. So, nothing against this guy, but Bob Lanier was another guy that was overlooked. But his knees were so bad, he just sat on the sideline, iced his knees, and just so he could just play in the games. But Moses Malone, rest in peace, and Bob Lanier, rest in peace, by the way. And it's kind of freaky for me because we're losing a lot of players, that played in my era, and we just lost another great player that played for the Houston Rockets, Robert Reed, who was my teammate in Houston on Monday, and that's another subject. But Moses Malone practiced as hard as he played. And back then, when he was MVP of the league, averaging 40 plus minutes a game. And I've told this story before. I'll tell it really quickly. That I was his backup, and we were on a long road trip out east or somewhere when I was with the Houston Rockets, and he played almost every minute of the game battling, and I play 5, 8 minutes, whatever. And then you got to fly commercial, and you're flying around, and we landed back in Houston after about 8 days or 10 days, and everybody's worn out, and Coach Harris was not very happy. So he said, we're going right from here, right from the airport to practice. And we went right to practice, right to the gym, and we were doing drills and playing, 5-on-5. And I kind of took it easy on Moses. I'm going to take it easy on him, man. He's been battling. He's tired. And he just stopped in the middle of practice, turned and just looked at me and started yelling at me. As much as he yelled, he didn't yell very much. He said, you cannot take it easy on me in practice because they won't in the game. You have to keep pushing me no matter how tired I am. So, that's a little story for that.
I love that story, bro. It's another Moses story. We may get to it because, we have a whole new audience that hadn't heard some of these war stories you have. Chris Ramsey, Nick dunked on Bird. Nick dunked on everybody.
On everybody, man. We were playing in the playoffs one time, and I can't remember, but it was in front of our bench, and I was sitting on the bench. I wasn't in the game, and Nick came from like the top of the key, flying through the air. They missed a shot, and he just flew through the air, and his head was above the rim, and he just slam dunked it on like 3 of our guys. And if you look at the footage, our bench is like, oh man.
I was going to say, Paul, when you guys I mean, you guys are competitors, but you also love the game. And when you see something like that, do you become a fan for like 2 seconds?
Yeah,
Or
well, first of all, I'm thinking, thank God I'm not on the court because that would have been me. But yeah, I mean, you see like Dominique or Bird make one of those no look passes, or Magic do his thing, or of course MJ do what MJ does. At some point, you're going, you're a fan, and you're going, wow, and then you got to get back into it. I remember like early in my career, because I grew up in Southern California, a UCLA fan, a Bruin fan, and it was Lou Alcindor, then it was Bill Walton, but Lou Alcindor, I watched him play at UCLA before he was Kareem, and with that nice, beautiful sky hook, just beautiful shot. And I remember it was my rookie year, maybe it was my second year when I was in Detroit starting, and we're playing the Lakers, and I was just kind of guarding them and going, "Wow, that's pretty. Look at that, man. I used to watch that on TV." And one of my players said, "Mo, you got to guard him." I said, "Oh yeah, I got to guard him."
That's great stuff. And thank you for the question. 80s basketball, Chris, I'm with you, man. It was definitely one of the great eras. Now we're getting into all these old school names now. Clyde Drexler, Danny Manning.
We'll do a show that'll just be 80s basketball. Let's do that.
I mean, really, we could do 80s, and I mean that would be tremendous. But I do want to get back to let's talk about the home stretch, and it's certainly Boston in the East, right, Mo?
To finish first, yeah.
Yeah,
But
and
in a
that means
7-game series, Bucks can beat them, Knicks can beat them, Philly maybe if Embiid comes back. I don't know about the Cavs, but yeah, to finish in the first place, yeah.
well, now that I don't see how. How do you think the Knicks beat Boston? I know they know each other very well,
Yeah,
but
because they play defense. They added a ball handler. They added Alex Burks, a scorer. Randall's been hurt, but he's coming back, and they play hard-nosed defense. And I'm telling you, Brunson can win a game by himself. So that's why they can beat him. If everybody's healthy. I mean, they won't. It's not like they will beat him, but they could beat him.
all right, okay, I'm with you there. I'm with you. Let's go to the West. We spoke earlier about Minnesota and Oklahoma City in a virtual tie. Denver's won 3 straight, Paul. 6-4. They're the defending champions. They got the Joker. They're missing a lot of pieces from their championship team, but they are still dangerous. And we talked about this before. With all respect to teams like Minnesota and Oklahoma City, they aren't scaring anyone.
No, I mean Denver's been there before. Murray's healthy now. They're that 1-2 combination, and then they're just not very deep, but they weren't very deep last year when they won it all. 7 deep, that's it. And if you run into an injury or something happens, then there might go your whole playoff series. So Denver, but the team that's moving up and is dangerous that could win it all. I mean which is a series I'd like to see in the finals maybe, is the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean they're on a roll. They're getting healthy. They have a chance. If you look at the rosters, they have as good or a better roster than anybody in the league. So you're looking at James Harden, Kawhi, Paul George, Norman Powell, who just had 28. Zubac is a really serviceable big. Then you got Westbrook off the bench, Plumlee, who's a serviceable big, Daniel Thias, PJ Tucker, who maybe he'll come back, and then Terrence Mann. I mean, that's 10 deep right there, and they're playing really good, and they had experience. If they stay healthy, I can see them winning it in the West. And if it is Boston, which I'm hoping it's the Bucks, but whoever they're playing in the finals, that'll be a great series.
And we got Phoenix at 6.5. Phoenix and Sacramento. I mentioned Sacramento, 33-23. Phoenix 34-24. The sweet spot in the West is that the second seed too? If you can't get that first seed, who are
Nah,
you trying to avoid early? Denver?
nobody. I mean,
Okay.
the West is the West. It's not like the East.
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone wants to avoid Boston. Everybody. But
Right.
in the West, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Denver, Clippers, Sacramento, Suns, Mavs, Lakers. Well, they're all the same pretty much. So
Okay.
you're not unless you're looking at matchups that you don't want a certain matchup. But besides that, I mean, if you're playing, if the Clippers are playing OKC in the first round, they're not scared. Or the Suns are playing Minnesota or whatever. But the bottleneck there is Clippers, Sacramento. No, not Clippers. Sacramento, Suns, New Orleans, and the Mavs are all half a game. That seventh spot gets you to fifth spot. So there's a lot of jostling that can go on in that position. And then you have the Lakers who I wouldn't be surprised if they get to the West Finals either if they're healthy.
Well,
Because
Steve's checking it. He says Lakers and Warriors, no. Likes the Nuggets playing better, and the Joker's playing MVP level. Well, the Joker's going to turn it on down the stretch.
yeah, and we've talked about this before, right? If everybody's healthy in a 7 games NBA playoff series, the Stars don't win the series. The Stars are going to do what the Stars do. And besides injuries, the biggest thing to win a 7 game series of the NBA is your role players and your backups. Those are the guys that have to step up and win you a series. So yeah, Joker's going to do. I mean, I watched his numbers in the last 3 games are the GOAT's numbers. Wilt's the GOAT, by the way. Those of you just checking in, Wilt is the GOAT, no question. And Joker's numbers in the last 3 games are like that. We're talking about 30 points, 20 rebounds, 8 assists, that kind of numbers. But yeah, but I think the Lakers still have a chance. Gold State playing a little better, but no. But the West is what it was last year. Remember, it's the Wild Wild West. I mean, there's no standout number one team. I mean, Minnesota, OKC, Denver, Clippers, Sacramento, Suns, Mavs, Lake. I mean, pick one. That makes it very interesting from the first round on, though.
Let's see. Let's go here. Mo, man, the hour has just flown by here. All these great questions and comments. Remember, you can get this show on Sports Fluent and wherever you get your podcast. We will be there. And Chris Middleton's back. 5 games before the playoff game. I'm trying to get to. Now I want to get to a West comment.
Yeah, Chris Middleton's been injured, but he hasn't played the way he usually plays anyway. So if they can get him healthy and playing and contributing, that would be a big bonus for the Bucks.
Yeah, absolutely here. Okay, let's go. We got so many. I can't find everything I'm looking for. Mo, who would be? I guess you just said if you had to get a surprise team, would be the Lakers because they're currently the 9th seed.
Yeah, if I'm looking at a long shot, it's the Lakers. If I'm looking at, if I was, someone said, "Hey, you're gonna put a bet on who's gonna win the West," I might put it on the Clippers.
Yeah, the Clippers they have, and that's the thing with Harden started off so bad, Mo. They went 0-5.
But then they turned it around, and Westbrook's a big part of that coming off the bench.
And to your point about the Lakers, man, I didn't even realize this. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games.
Yeah, they're playing well. Yeah, because they're healthy.
As well as Golden State. Golden State is 8-2 in their last 10. They're sitting in the 10th spot. So you're definitely trying to get out of the 9th and 10th spot. You got Dallas.
You got to get out of the 8th spot too because you're in the playing.
Right, and that's Dallas. They're 3 games ahead of the Lakers. and then Phoenix is 3.5. I'm sorry, New Orleans is 3.5 ahead of the Lakers. Let's stop at New Orleans for a minute, Mo. 7-3 in their last 10 games. Zion has had some times where he's just looked awful out there, but all in all, it's been a pretty good year for him. Number one, he's on the court playing most of the time.
Yeah, availability, right? But he still doesn't look in great shape, and I don't think New Orleans is a threat to anybody at this point.
And as I just see that, I see he's now dealing with a foot injury. I man,
right on
I
cue.
don't. Yeah, I don't wish that on anybody.
Hey, before we get out of here, I want to touch on the storm the court issue.
Yes.
Basketball. So,
yes.
yeah, so we all saw after the Duke game at Wake Forest the other night, students stormed the court, and one of the Duke players, Filipowski, was caught up in the fray, and it looks like he turned his ankle or his knee or something, and his teammates gathered around him and got him out of there. But it's not the first thing that's ever happened. I mean, Caitlin Clark, the great player from Iowa, ran into another fan storming the court. I never, in college, we never stormed the court because I played for Kansas. So we never stormed the court because we're supposed to win. But, people don't storm the court at Kansas or Duke or North Carolina. But I believe that it's getting in the danger zone. I mean, we had this conversation a year or so ago, right, in handshake lines where there were some altercations in the handshake line. And my thing was just get rid of it. Nobody wants to do it anyway. Storming the court is different because, the students are there. No matter what kind of security you have, really, unless you got like 1,000 huge bouncers, that's 10,000 kids coming on the floor. I mean, good luck. And by stopping them, you might cause more of a problem, right? But you have to find a way to get the visiting players, especially, off the court. I mean, Ricky, look back on the Lakers and the Celtics back in the day when the championship and the ball went up. All the fans stormed on the floor. You could see Larry Bird even punching fans to get off in the locker room, and Bill Wall just pushing fans and punching them. To get in, they had to get out of there to get in the locker room. What happens if the big kid from Duke that got hurt? What if he squares up on one of those kids and punches him right in the face? And then they have a Rudy Tomjanovich situation that almost kills the kid, which could happen. But how can you blame the guy who's trying to get off the floor? So, a lot of people are saying, well, you got to fine them more. Do you know how much the fines are, like in the SEC, for storming the court?
I think it's $500,000.
It's 100,000. It's 100,000 for the first time, 200,000 for the second time, 500,000 for the third time.
Right.
And over the last 20 years in the SEC, from basketball alone, there's been $3.9 million paid of fines. So obviously that doesn't answer the question, right? In football, in the SEC, for storming the field, which is a little less dangerous because the guy's got helmets and pads on, but then when they take that goalpost down, it could kill somebody. There's been $2.6 million of fines. But in my opinion, money's not the answer. If you want to get rid of storming the court and putting players in a dangerous situation, I'm telling you, if I was trying to get off the floor, and Ricky, you're one of the kids that stormed it, I might knock you out, man.
Absolutely.
But here's my answer. I got the answer, just like I had the answer for the All-Star game. Here's the answer. From now on in college, if your fans storm the court after you upset the number one team, you lose the game.
Wow.
You lose the game.
Mo, we're going to have to pick that up next week because we got to get out of here.
You lose the game. Storm the court, lose the game.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. You've been watching We Got Next here on Sports Fluence. See you next Monday. Take care.
Everybody
Peace.
come on back.